All right, I am back. It has been too long. I'm gonna be honest, y'all. I just lost the love of making videos for a while. So obviously, y'all know I haven't made a video since what was it, the NFL draft earlier this year, in which I covered, I think, four of the picks. I'd even cover Austin Booker. So I'm sorry to you, although he is balling out. So I'll talk about that in a minute. But I kind of want to restart this whole thing of Bears content, kind of talking about the Bears season in general and what I think kind of their record is gonna be for this video. Obviously, I will go more in depth about players and the teams we're going against in separate videos, but I just kind of want to give my sort of breakdown for each game and what we're gonna, end up in terms of record wise, if we're gonna make the playoffs and whatnot, and what our playoff record is gonna be. It is also 90 degrees in this room because there is no AC in this room and I'm sweating. But we are going to do this video regardless. So week one, we are going to start off with the Tennessee Titans. And this is a very confusing game to kind of predict. Now, a lot of people are saying that the Titans are going to be this very bad team. I even heard some saying they could end up being one of the worst, like even a bottom three team in the NFL. And personally, I don't think so. I think they have just enough talent to remain sort of middle of the pack, but obviously nothing to compete for really, because they're not, in positions like the Chiefs or the Bengals or the Ravens. They're not a top tier team. But I do believe they are somewhat respectable. They have pieces like Jeffrey Simmons on the D line. They did just acquire L'Jarius Sneed from the Chiefs. And Will Levis is still pretty much an unknown. I know last year he kind of had an up and down year. You had moments where in his first game, he threw 4 touchdowns against the Atlanta Falcons. And then he had a fourth quarter comeback against the Miami Dolphins, who at the time were one of the top teams in the NFL. But then some really low lows where he only passed for another 4 touchdowns in the next like 8 games, I believe, 7 or 8 games after he had thrown those first 4 touchdowns in that first game he started. So he really is an unknown. And as of right now, if I had to really put a label on him, I think he's kind of going to be more of a middle tier quarterback. I don't think he's going to be special like a Joe Burrow or anything. However, that team does have weapons. They still have Calvin Ridley, who is a respectable receiver. D-Hop is definitely on the older side, but he can still get open. He's still one of the better route runners in this league. Even if he is like 32, 33 years old, he's still, very reliable with his hands. Obviously, he's not the same D-Hop that he wasn't on the Texans or the Cardinals, but he's still a respectable player in my opinion. And on top of that, they did revamp the offensive line a little bit. It's not going to be anything crazy good, but it's still better than what they were last year. And I think all that is going to contribute to them being a little bit of a better football team this year than some might expect. And you got to take into consideration one thing here. With Caleb Williams, this is his first start in the NFL, first real life game action. We're not talking about preseason. I'm not talking about practice. This is the regular season, completely different than the preseason. And there's a lot of unknowns here. We don't know if Caleb Williams is going to be the answer. One, my hope, obviously, as a Bears fan, I really hope he is, because we have not had a quarterback in forever, basically. But we do have a lot of good pieces on offense. We have DJ Moore. We have Keenan Allen. We have Rome Odunze, who we drafted 9th overall. We have DeAndre Swift, Cole Kmet, Gerald Everett. We have a solid offensive line. Again, not top of the league, but solid enough to most likely get the job done if Caleb Williams plays and does good. We have, like I said, running backs DeAndre Swift. We have Khalil Herbert and Roschon Johnson, whoever else they'll let on the roster. Maybe Velus Jones will be the 4th running back in there. I'm not too concerned about him on that point there. But we have a lot of pieces, but if you notice about the players I also mentioned, a lot of those players are very new, meaning that they're going to need time to gel together. And a very similar situation happened last year where the Bears acquired a lot of pieces on defense, and we weren't really a good defense until halfway through the season. Yes, I know that Montez Sweat kind of kickstarted that, but you have to take into account that these players have never played together in the NFL in terms of like actually on an NFL team together. Rome Odunze as a rookie. Keenan Allen has never played on the Bears. DeAndre Swift has never played in the Bears. Our center, Coleman Shelton, never played in the Bears. Ryan Bates, who could at any point switch out for anybody in the offensive line because we know we get hurt a lot. He's never played on the Bears. There's a couple guys on there. Gerald Everett, too, never played on the Bears. Shane Waldron, his first time play calling as a Chicago Bear. Caleb Williams, the main piece of this offense, his first time on the Chicago Bears. And historically speaking, that's normally what happens, is that the quarterbacks tend to struggle in their first game, no matter how much of a good prospect they were. Now, do I think he's going to struggle like other quarterbacks? No, I think we still put up a fight. But it's for that reason why I believe we are going to lose this week 1 game. And it's not because the Tennessee Titans are currently a better team than the Bears. I think it's just simply the fact that the Bears are going to need time to kind of gel things together. But I really do believe that once we do, we are going to be a force to be reckoned with as soon as this year, as soon as maybe even halfway through the year. So obviously that was a little long for the first game. I'm going to keep going a little longer, just kind of want to explain some things here and there. We move on to week 2 against the Houston Texans, and man, why do we have to face the Houston Texans week 2, man? CJ Stroud and Will Anderson and Daniel Hunter and Nico Collins and Stephon Diggs, man, I can name so many players on that team that are so good. It's going to be a loss. I don't need to say much here. This is a very good team. CJ Stroud lit the world on fire his rookie season. And man, he is such a good quarterback. And could it be a ruse, per se, and he has a sophomore slump? Sure, but I highly doubt it. And he's just going to be a very good quarterback, man. Just shows a lot of veteran traits, going into his second year. I think we are going to get smacked here a little bit, not going to lie. But it's okay because it is the Texans, who are much further in their rebuild, sort of say, than we are. And they're pretty much Super Bowl sort of contenders / hopefuls this season. Maybe the hype is too much, but I don't think we're going to win that game. I'd be very surprised if we did. Then you move on to week 3 against the Indianapolis Colts, who we are going against Anthony Richardson, who is in some ways like a Will Levis, an unknown who showed flashes, but he got hurt really early and he had his shoulder injuries. And historically speaking, shoulder injuries are very bad for quarterbacks. And the first name that comes to my mind is Cam Newton. After he's injured his shoulder and needed surgery, he was just not the same quarterback anymore and got shipped out of the Panthers and never really gelled with any other team. Even when he came back to the Panthers, never gelled back with them. So Anthony Richardson does have an upside of talent. Probably the most athletic quarterback in NFL history. I mean, this dude is just super fast, super strong, and insane arm power, throw power, and everything. All kind of like the traits you would want in a quarterback, but we don't know if he can actually all put it together at the NFL level. And if he can actually stay healthy. They also don't have too many players on their team that really scare me. You do have Michael Pittman in there. You have a few other guys like Adonai Mitchell, who they drafted, who I believe was a steal. You have Josh Downs in here, who had a solid rookie year before he got hurt. And then you have their latest draft pick in Laiatu Latu, who was kind of like my favorite edge coming out of the draft class. We don't know how he'll do. They have Quentin Nelson still, who's still a very good guard in this league. And they do have a couple of solid players, but I think by then the Bears offense will be a little bit more accustomed to each other and start to kind of pick things up a little bit. I know it's still only week 3, and we're not going to really skyrocket to that top team yet, but I still think we're going to be a solid team by then. We're going to be a little bit better than we were in weeks 1 and 2. And I think we're going to come out of here with our first W. We're going to put us up at 1-2 against the Colts. Then we're back home against the LA Rams, in which we are going against Matthew Stafford. And I believe this is the second time we've played Matthew Stafford when he as a Ram. I know we played him his very first game as a Ram. He absolutely destroyed us back in 2021, and they went out to win the Super Bowl. So, that's cool for them. But they are not the same team they were back in 2021. I mean, most notable loss, and probably the most notable loss, one of the most notable losses of all time, is losing their future Hall of Fame defensive tackle, Aaron Donald, who arguably was the best defensive player in NFL history. You can throw him in the names alongside guys like Lawrence Taylor, Bruce Smith, Deion Sanders. He's just one of the GOATs. He's on that Mount Rushmore of GOATs, especially on the D-line. That dude was a monster, and it's going to be pretty much impossible to replace him. Although they are doing something of a good job to do that. You had Kobe Turner in there, who had 9.5 sacks last season. You have Jared Verse, who they drafted out of Florida in this year's draft. We'll see how he turns out. They have a couple other studs on the D-line and on defense in general, but they're just not the same team. Cooper Kupp is still dealing with some injuries, but he is a little older now, and we don't know if he's going to be healthy throughout the season. And who knows if his new favorite target, Matthew Stafford's new favorite target, is Puka Nacua, who is also a very solid receiver, very good receiver. Literally broke a bunch of rookie records as a rookie wide receiver last year. So obviously you can imagine he's going to take a next step up. Although I think here, though, we do pull off this victory. I think by then Caleb Williams starts to progress a little bit more. I think that the Bears defense starts to shut down a little bit more. Remember, we're still a very good defense, so you got to take that into account as well. And I think the Bears do come out of here with a W, and our offense starts to get rolling a little bit more. Then you've got the Carolina Panthers, the gift that keeps on giving, man. We still have their second-round pick next year. And I'm sorry, but they did not get much better this year. They did add a couple new pieces here and there. I believe they really overspent on a lot of players, but they still did somewhat of a solid job doing it, kind of. But just the Carolina Panthers, man. I'm thinking they're going to be the worst team in football, probably alongside the New England Patriots. Not going to say much here. We're going to blow them out the water. I really do believe this is going to be the game that Caleb Williams actually, quote unquote, breaks out, as a rookie and kind of shows what he's all about against a very bad team, a very porous defense who was solid against the run, but the only reason why they were solid against the run statistically is because nobody ran on them because you didn't need to. All you had to do was just pass and you're going to get yards no matter what. So I think we're going to win that one. That brings our record up to 3-2 for that so far for the season. Then we fly all the way to London to play an international game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And this is an interesting one because the Jacksonville Jaguars, this is more of a home game for them. And that sucks because schedule-wise, and I guess, technically speaking, this is supposed to be one of our home games. So it sucks that one of our home games is getting counted as an international game, or it's being counted as a home game. So even though Jacksonville is very popular in the UK, and they're actually a more popular team, I would say, than the Bears. So this could very much be kind of like an away game for us. And the Jaguars are a solid team. They still got Trevor Lawrence. They added a few guys. They didn't keep Calvin Ridley, but they added Brian Thomas Jr. in the draft, who I think is a very solid receiver. One of my favorite receivers coming out of the draft. And then obviously you have Christian Kirk, who's still there. It was a very solid option for him. Him meaning Trevor Lawrence. And then you have Gabe Davis as well. And Gabe Davis is still really solid. Obviously, he's not like anything like I would say his teammate Stephon Diggs, but he is still a very solid option. And Jacksonville defense is actually pretty underrated, and they still have Josh Allen. I think it's Josh Allen Hines right now or something like that. They changed his name to something Josh Hines Allen, I would think what it is actually. But they're still a solid team, and I think the Jags are actually going to pull this one off here. I think coming from the fact that they're playing mostly a home game because they're in the UK, and Jacksonville is very popular in the UK, so I think they're going to take that game away for us, and I think we're going to be put down to 3-3. Week 7 we have a bye week, but then we go week 8 into Washington, and the Commanders who had the second overall pick in which they selected Jayden Daniels. And I'm not going to lie, a lot of their moves this offseason did not move me. If these moves they made maybe were happened like 3 years ago, maybe this would have been a really solid team with Austin Eckler and Bobby Wagner and them, but they signed a lot of aging veterans, and honestly, none of them really moved me at much. And Jayden Daniels, I am not a big fan of. I really don't even think he was the QB2 in this draft class. And on top of that, he doesn't even really have much weapons to work with outside of Terry McLaurin. He had Jahan Dotson, who for some reason they decided to trade to their rival Eagles. Why would you do that? No idea. I mean, it's not like they're like us where they have a plethora of receivers. It was literally Terry McLaurin, and that's it. I mean, I don't even know who else they signed. I think they signed Curtis Samuel maybe, but, that doesn't move the needle for me at all. I don't know why they would get rid of one of their guys. It makes no sense, especially for Jayden Daniels' rookie year. You want to give him a lot of weapons to work with to help him develop, and you kind of taking that away from him. And not that it really would have done a whole lot for him, but it would have at least helped a little bit. This move does not help them at all, at least for this year and for Jayden Daniels' rookie season. So I think we're going to beat them here. I think this is kind of a no-brainer here. I don't think Jayden Daniels is that good. Could he be solid and could he prove me wrong? Well, of course, but I think he took too many hits in college. I don't think he knows when to slide, and I think, honestly, a little bit inaccurate in my opinion. I don't think he's going to perform too well at the NFL level. Could be wrong, but that's just kind of my analysis on that. Then we play the Arizona Cardinals the following week, and this team did make a lot of improvements, and obviously the most notable improvement was at the wide receiver position, which they drafted probably, honestly, in my opinion, the best wide receiver prospect ever in Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, I think 20 years ago he would have been the first overall pick, just because that's when they would go first overall. But you'll never see a receiver going first overall in today's era. But Marvin Harrison Jr., man, he is as good as number 1 overall pick worthy as you can get. Man, this dude is a monster. The most NFL-ready prospect in general that I've probably ever seen in my life. And I think he's going to come in day 1 and just be an absolute star. I think literally after his first game, you can probably put him in the top 10 receiver conversation. I think he's just that good. However, for the Cardinals, they still have a lot of question marks. And yes, they had a plethora of draft picks to address a bunch of needs on their team, but they still have a lot of holes and a lot of young guys who are still going to have to get used to NFL speed and the NFL in general. So with that, I don't think the Cardinals are going to beat us this game. I have us winning here. The Cardinals are an underrated team for this year, and honestly, maybe even a dark horse playoff candidate. If they end up having a similar season to like the Packers last year, to where they had like a lot of young players that just overperform and everything, and Kyler Murray ends up kind of returning to old form where he was playing almost at an MVP level back when DeAndre Hopkins was on the Cardinals, and that could very well happen with Marvin Harrison Jr., but I just don't see it happening this year at least, and I think by then, Caleb Williams will have kind of shown the world who he truly is in terms of being a really good quarterback and being that number one overall prospect that we know him to be. And by then, he'll be a really good quarterback. I think we beat the Arizona Cardinals right here in week 9. Then week 10, we kind of cap off probably the easiest 3-game stretch we've had in years, I would say. I mean, we had the Commanders, the Cardinals. Now we had the Patriots, who are in run for being the worst team in NFL, along with the Carolina Panthers. And Drake May hasn't looked, that great in the regular season. Hasn't looked, I guess, terrible, but also hasn't moved the needle too much for me. And most of it, honestly, is not his fault. He's got a first-time head coach in there after Bill Belichick left. He has nothing, really. I mean, a receiver, I don't even know. They have Jalen Polk, who's a solid rookie, in there. They still have Hunter Henry in there. I don't know if Mike Gesicki is still there, but either way, they don't have any players, and I mean literally any players at all that really move the needle for anybody. I would honestly say their best offensive player as of right now, maybe, it's got to be Ramondre Stevenson, the running back. And he's a solid running back, but once again, that offensive line still has a lot of question marks, and he's a rookie quarterback going 3rd overall. And when you match him up against just talent-wise, a team like the Chicago Bears, I don't think they stand a chance against us. And for that reason, we're going to beat them. I think it's going to be similar to the Panthers game. We kind of smack him around a little bit. And who knows, maybe by then he'll have, kind of caught up to NFL speed. But they just have they're super deprived in talent all around on both sides of the ball. They had Matthew Judon at edge. He's no longer there. He's shipped off to the Falcons. And, good for the Falcons and them. But Christian Gonzalez right now is maybe their best defensive player, who had a really solid rookie season before he, I believe, tore his ACL. But once again, doesn't really move the needle enough for me on that one. Then the true test comes in week 11. We have our beloved, when I say beloved, I mean overly hated Green Bay Packers. That's right. We don't face our first division rival until week 11, which I don't remember the last time I've seen that. I've never seen that. Usually you play those teams or a division rival at least once within the first 4 to 5 weeks, and we have to wait all the way to week 11 to face our first division opponent. That is so weird. I don't know why the NFL did that. I don't even know how they make these schedules. I feel like they just kind of just throw stuff in a bucket, or they just throw darts at the dartboard and see what sticks in terms of the schedule. I don't think there's any real strategy behind it. And if there is, I would love to know. Maybe one of you guys know and just type it in the comments. But anyway, back to the whole point here. We face the Green Bay Packers week 11. And man, this is going to be Caleb Williams' first true test in the NFL. I mean, obviously you have the Texans in there, but this is a different kind of game. Obviously, the Packers have had our number for the past, 30 years now? I mean, we have a losing record against them in the past 30 years. Aaron Rodgers' reign of terror, was finally over last year. We thought it was going to be done. But unfortunately, Jordan Love decides to take up Aaron Rodgers' heir to the throne and decides to be another great quarterback. And now that marks 3 quarterbacks in a row that they've hit on, and I'm going to puke just even talking about this. But Jordan Love, as of right now, is no Aaron Rodgers. And we have come close in some years, in some games, to beating Rodgers. And we've had even the lead in some of those games. I even remember back in 2022, 2022, the year that the Bears had the worst record in football, we put up a fight in one of those games against the Packers. And I believe this year, I don't think is going to be the year where we beat them yet. At least maybe not the first game. I don't think we're going to do that just yet. Once again, Caleb is a rookie quarterback, and honestly, the Green Bay Packers have taught me one thing and one thing only, is that no matter what, I'm not predicting a Bears win against the Packers until I see it. If we beat them week 11, then I'll start considering it. And I know that's kind of, going against kind of like the whole analysis portion. I'm kind of throwing that out the window, but I'm not doing it anymore, guys. The Packers have had our number for way too long. We have not beat them since 2018, and I don't even remember the last time before that. So I'm not doing it. Not just yet. Then we go to week 12 to the Minnesota Vikings, and man, oh man, my heart aches for Minnesota Vikings fans. And first off, RIP, rest in peace to Kyrie Jackson, who was, I believe, their third, fourth, or fifth round pick. It was a sort of mid to late round pick for the Minnesota Vikings. Unfortunately, he passed away in a car accident. I don't know the details of that, but no matter what, hadn't even played in the NFL, not even one snap. Didn't even make it to preseason. And this is something you work for your entire life for. And for him to just pass away at such a young age, obviously he was in his younger 20s, is just an absolute tragedy. And I wish, nothing but the best of prayers and deepest sympathy to his family and friends and the team in general, of course. And that just sucks. And to make matters worse, too, they have just suffered a shit ton of injuries. And excuse my language on that, but man, they have suffered so many injuries and so many bad moments. And the next most notable thing is JJ McCarthy, who tore his meniscus. And some people were speculating that it would only keep him out for maybe like a month or two, like 6 to 8 weeks in a way. And the Vikings said, no, we're going to keep him out for his entire rookie season. That's right. He's not playing not one snap in the rookie season, which is super disappointing because I was actually looking forward to that as a Bears fan. Because I feel by then, and with considering how good he did his, first game in preseason, I think by then, week 12, he would have started. I think we would have been able to see a Caleb Williams versus JJ McCarthy showdown. And a game that I would have predicted we would win anyway. And same thing with the Vikings here. They do have talent on their team, but they don't have the quarterback to get it done. Sam Darnold, I'm not a believer in him. And yes, the rest of the team, it's not terrible. They still have Justin Jefferson in there. They still have Jordan Addison. I believe TJ Hawkinson should be back by then. They lost Daniel Hunter, but they replaced him with Jonathan Grenard from the Texans, who had 12.5 sacks. With them, they drafted Dallas Turner, who was arguably the best defensive player in the draft. But they still have a lot of question marks on their team, and most notably in the secondary too. They signed Stephon Gilmore, but man, this is not 2017 where he won Defensive Player of the Year. He's just not a good cornerback anymore. He's not, maybe he's okay and solid, but do you really trust him going against DJ Moore and Keenan Allen just one-on-one for the entire game at his age? Not me. And like I said, with Sam Darnold and with an aging Aaron Jones, who is still solid, but once again, not the same way he was when he was in his prime with the Packers, I think we win here. And I think we beat the Minnesota Vikings here. Going on to the next game, Thanksgiving versus the Detroit Lions, who have a history of losing almost every single Thanksgiving game. They're like cursed with Thanksgiving. I'm not sure why the NFL even puts them on Thanksgiving. I think it's more of just tradition at this point. But they keep losing. Even in Family Guy, they've made jokes about it, so they've lost a lot of games. And I think for Lions fans, I think they're going to be happy to hear this, but I think this year changes. Caleb Williams, once again, he's a rookie, and yes, he could, blow us out of the water already by week 13 and be a very solid quarterback. But typically speaking, rookie quarterbacks don't do amazingly well, like CJ Stroud level well, in their first season. And keep in mind, the Detroit Lions are arguably the best team in the NFL. Arguably. I don't think they are. I wouldn't personally say that. I still would put the 49ers and Chiefs above them, I mean. But they are still a very solid team, a very great team, and they are Super Bowl contenders. Jared Goff was playing lights out last year. They have Amon-Ra. Sam Laporta, who's a breakout tight end, could honestly make a run at being the best tight end in the league this year in his second year. They have the best offensive line in the league. They have David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, probably the best running back duo in the league. Their defense is solid with Aiden Hutchinson on the D-line, who I absolutely love on the D-line. And then they have Jack Campbell, who's going into his second year. And they just have a lot of great players. Brian Branch in there going into his second year as well. They're a very young and solid and very just amazing team. So I think we're going to lose this game here just because they're that good of a team. Do I see us winning? Because I believe it is at home and Jared Goff does struggle in the cold. So could we have a better chance winning? I think we do, but I'm just not going to predict it just yet. Then you got the San Francisco 49ers week 14. And similar to like the Texans, I just don't think we're there on par in terms of talent and roster talent as much as the 49ers, who have just a god squad right now. And it's kind of their make it or break it year, so they're playing their hearts out before they have to pay Brock Purdy. And this game, not gonna lie, we're gonna get crushed here. Is there a world where we can maybe make it interesting for them if Caleb Williams ends up doing really good? Sure, but I don't predict we're gonna win here. They're still a very solid team, top 2 team in the NFL, pretty much the best team in the NFC. No, they're in run for yet another Super Bowl appearance. I think they're gonna beat us here. Then you've got the Minnesota Vikings again. Not gonna talk too much on them. Already said, they lost They lost JJ McCarthy, so Sam Darnold is starting, and he could be solid because he's got a good roster, good enough weapons. They got Aaron Jones, who's okay. You got Justin Jefferson, who's the best receiver in football. Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson. By then, he'll have him back. Still though, I think we're gonna win here. Like I said, I think Caleb's gonna be too good. I think this Bears defense is gonna be too good, and I don't think Sam Darnold is the guy. Then week 16, we're back at facing Detroit in Detroit here, and this is kind of one of those like games where you kind of wonder if you can split here because the Bears do have a solid roster. You do have a rookie quarterback, but they are playing in Detroit. And if I have to be super realistic here, guys, I think we're going to lose this game. Now, do I see us winning? Yeah, absolutely. Justin Fields won last year, and he's we are hoping that Caleb Williams turns out to be a much better quarterback than Justin Fields. And in my opinion, too, the Lions didn't even really do too much to address their defense in terms of being able to stop quarterbacks who are mobile. The Lions last year struggled mightily against QBs that could run. Even Brock Purdy, once he figured out he could run in the NFC Championship thing, I think he had like 80 yards rushing, which is like insane for him. But any quarterback that is somewhat mobile, they have a hard time stopping. And I don't think they made too many changes. And until I see it happen, I could see us winning that game. But like I said, they're also a really good team. Dan Campbell's a great coach. I think we lose that game as well. Then you got the Seattle Seahawks here. And the Seattle Seahawks are not down bad per se. I still think they're going to be a solid team. But they lost Pete Carroll, who's one of the better coaches of all time. They lost Shane Waldron because we stole him from him. And then Geno Smith is starting to decline a little bit. He had a good season in 2022. 23 was okay, but I think he's starting to decline a little bit. And yes, they still have a lot of young talent. And Kenneth Walker, DK Metcalf, JSN. Still have a really solid receiving core. Their D tackle, Brian Murphy, who they drafted in the first round, I believe at like pick 14 or 15, looks really solid. But I still don't think they have the talent to keep up with the Bears roster who have a very good defense. And we have enough corners to cover all three guys. We have, a Jalen Johnson that can go cover DK. We have a Tyreek Stevenson who can handle JSN or Tyler Lockett on the outside. And then you have Kyler Gordon the slot who will cover JSN or Tyler Lockett. I keep saying all the other Tylers are Tyreeks other than Tyler Lockett, but we have guys that can cover that. Our strength is our secondary, and I think we match up well against the Seattle Seahawks, and I don't think Geno Smith is going to be that good without Shane Waldron and Pete Carroll. So I do think we take the W here, although I could see it flipping around if the Seahawks actually do prove us wrong this year. Then the last game of the year, what better way to end a Bears season than to play your rival, most hated rival of all time, the Green Bay Packers, in Green Bay. Now, like I said, you already know I'm not going to predict the Bears victory here. I'm sorry, I just can't. I cannot yet. I have predicted it way too often the past 6 years, ever since we beat them in 2018. That's all I needed to be like, we're going to beat them every year. We're going to at least squeeze out one victory every year. It never happens. And especially after last year, that was the last straw for me. I am not predicting a Bears victory over the Packers until I see it. Now, what I do want to see in these games is that we are competitive against them and we're not just getting ran through like all the other Packers games, but at least be respectable, but I don't think we're going to beat them. So if you add all those up, I believe the Bears finish somewhere around 9-8 right here. Now, that's kind of the middle ground. I will give a sort of ceiling and floor, and I know Tom Grossi does this, so shout out to him, but he kind of does his floor and ceiling. A lot of teams do it too, or a lot of other people do that as well. But the way I'm going to kind of describe it is the way Tom Grossi does. The ceiling being if everything goes right, and the floor being if everything goes wrong. Now the Bears, like I said, 9-8. Kind of my prediction. Obviously, I probably won't be right. There's not many people who get a record right like that. But I am still going to give a ceiling of 12-5, and I say that only because of the fact that we do have an easy schedule this year, and we could turn games around against the Titans. We could very well beat Week 1 if Caleb Williams just has a tremendous start to his career. Then you can go ahead and beat, the Jacksonville Jaguars, who, let's just say Trevor Lawrence isn't that good. Maybe he misses Calvin Ridley a little too much. You could have wins, like squeak out wins against maybe a team like the Lions. You could beat them, and maybe squeeze out one win against the Packers, and that would kind of bring your record up towards like that 12-5 type record, maybe. Then I think the floor for a team like the Bears who have a lot of talent, and if Caleb Williams doesn't, show that he's that guy just yet, I think you have our floor all the way down I believe at 7-10. And I think that is a pretty high floor for us, but it's not really because of Caleb Williams. It's because of the fact that our team just has that good of a roster. I think you can't go wrong with having guys like DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, as Roma Dunze as your top 3 receivers, and then having Cole Kmet in there. Then having DeAndre Swift, a solid O-line, and a defense that was just amazing last year and looks to be solid this year. So I think we do have a floor of 7-10. So that is my Bears prediction, season prediction. Obviously, that is subject to change as the season progresses. I will keep doing more sort of like in-game or week-by-week analysis for each team. But let me know what you guys think. Do you guys agree or disagree? Let me know. Bear down, I'm out.